Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Chandra and I make videos about reading, writing, and all things books. Today's video is about, it is a true or false. I've never done a true or false before. I found this and I thought this would be a lot of fun because there's a lot of advice that I was given when I first started writing and I was like, is this true? Is it false? And I'll tell you what my opinion of it is and why. So the first thing is, start with the basic software. What I mean by that is run a spell check, do Grammarly. I know there's a couple other different ones that people use a lot in the writing community. Use one of those. And this is absolutely true. There's a lot of super simple stuff that it will catch. It'll save you a lot of time. And instead of going through and trying to line edit everything or pick up something really small, just go ahead and run the software. It'll make your life a lot easier. So that one is true. Number 2, get rid of adverbs. I think this one is false. I personally don't edit that way. I think it comes out naturally. It's something that you can worry about later in the process. But at the beginning, I think it's more important to make sure that you have words on a page. And you can't edit a blank page. I know we've all heard that before, but it's very true. So don't worry about all your adverbs. Leave them in there. Just get something down. That's essential. That's number 1. Number 3, remove redundancy. This one I also think is false. Ultimately, you don't want to have the word door 10 times in a paragraph. Not ideal. But again, it's more important that you get the words down on paper than to start self-editing before you even have anything written. If it's going to come between that and self-editing and actually getting words on the page, I'm going to pick words on the page every time. So I think that removing redundancies is false. Number 4, don't start with line edits. This one is true. If you're writing and you've gotten all of your project words today, if you've gotten everything drafted and you're just starting to edit, there's no point going through line edits first. It's going to frustrate you. You're going to try to perfect things that don't need to be perfected because you need to make sure that your story and structure are good first. Before you worry about anything else, make sure the story is solid and the structure is good and the characters are well developed, and get all of that cleaned up before you start thinking about line edits. Number 5. Read your writing in a new format. This one is true. When you are doing your first read through after the first draft, you've already let your manuscript rest and you're coming back through to prepare to edit, it is so helpful to look at it in a different form. I find personally that when I've already read through so many times, which you will as you're editing, right after, even when you're drafting, sometimes you'll go back and look at stuff and be like, what did I say here? Or be looking for a specific part. You look at it so many times that when you go back to actually start editing, your brain just does not see things. You look at something and you look right through it, and even if you intended to move it, whatever the intention may be, that's how your brain sees it. And even if it's not that way, that's still how you're going to see it. So I definitely think editing in a new format is 100% the best plan. Number 6. Let your manuscript rest. This goes with number 5 really well. Yes, absolutely, this one's true. You must let your manuscript rest. I've tried to dive into editing right after finishing drafting. It does not go well. I couldn't even say what specifically it was that made it so hard. With my first project, I definitely think it was because it took me so long to write it. It took me about 10 months to write my first project. I just was too close to it. I couldn't see ways to improve it anymore. I looked at it so much. I think this goes back to when you've seen so much of it, you look right through the mistakes. You don't have time to absorb. I look at it kind of like this. This is a yoga example, but at the end of a yoga class, you'll go into Shavasana where you're laying in corpse pose on the floor. And it seems very simple. It doesn't seem super important because you're just resting and just allowing your body to absorb your practice. I think letting your manuscript rest is the same thing. You're taking a step away from it. You're not doing anything complicated. You're not trying to be fancy or show off or do anything. You're just absorbing and processing. And I think that you need that time away from your manuscript to really be in a place where you can edit and edit well. Number 7, separate your editing tasks. This is something that I didn't know when I first started editing. I think knowing this would have helped me tremendously when I started trying to edit without letting it rest, my first project. The thing that's so important about this is it helps you not to be scattered. It helps you not to get as frustrated. If you're looking for one specific thing, if all you did your first edit, and this is a tremendous oversimplification, but if all you did in your first edit was make sure that you didn't have run-on sentences, that would be a win. It would be so much easier than trying to line edit, make sure you don't have run-on sentences, make sure that your story arc is good, make sure that your characters are properly developed, make sure that you described all your settings. That's going to be overwhelming. So if your first edit is simply going through and making sure that you've described all your settings, that's good. That's great. You could even just write down a quick list and say, these are all my settings that I have. Let me go back through and see where the first place in the story was that this happened, and consider that an edit. It gives you a feeling of accomplishment, and then when you go back through on a second, third edit, whatever the case may be, however many you decide you need, you've broken it down into manageable pieces. And as you get more comfortable with the process, you may not need to do that, but for starters, this is absolutely true. You must break down your edits and determine exactly what you're editing for in each round. Number 8. Is that 8? Yeah, that's 8. Maths are hard. Get your first sentence right. I've heard this one a lot, and it is false. Trying to construct the perfect sentence is a losing proposition. You're going to frustrate yourself. This comes back to my first point, getting words on the page. This stops you from getting words on the page. You start editing before you even started. It is lose, lose, lose all the way through. This is absolutely false. You do not need to get the first sentence right. You're going to edit it and change it anyway, so it really, really doesn't matter. Just start writing. Get words on the page. Number 9, using a style guide. This is something I actually did not know about until very recently. I don't think you need a style guide to start writing. I saw this in some writing advice recently. I've been writing for 9 years, I think. And one of my beta readers mentioned a style guide to me. That was the first time I'd heard of it. Aside from like APA and MLA and all of those, I was familiar with those, but I didn't realize that people would create their own style guides for their own projects. I do think it's a good idea, but I think it's false that you need one when you get started. Keep things as simple as possible. Words on the page, always a priority. I'm going to say that a lot throughout this video, but I really do truly believe that. Number 10, hire a professional. Hire a professional to edit, hire a professional beta reader, hire. I think this is false. I think there's a lot of stuff about writing that you've got to learn just by doing, and people can tell you and you can read books about it, but it won't all sink in until you put it into practice. And that's been my experience, and I'm sure it's different for some people, but I've found, even as I've gone through and started to work with editors and things of that nature, I get a lot more out of working with beta readers or alpha readers than I have an editor thus far, because with an editor, you really have to know what you're looking for. And I watched a video on YouTube where someone was talking about their experience with developmental edits, which was something I had not considered before. And he raised some really valid points. So I'll go ahead and link that video in the description because I thought it was a great argument against using developmental editors. If you have a different opinion from that, I would love to hear it. Feel free to share that in the comments. Personally, I don't think, especially when you get started, I don't think it's necessary. Maybe when you're moving on and you're working on something bigger and trying to be market specific, that might be a good use for it. But if you're working on your first project and you're just trying to edit for the first time, I don't think that it's necessary. Number 11, editing and reading for other people. Oh, wait, I didn't say. Number 10 is false, in my opinion. Number 11, editing and reading for other people is true. It is definitely important. The way I would put it is, when you start writing, everything that you put on the page is terrible. We know this. But everything you put on the page is also the best thing you've ever written at the same time. It's very strange. The reason it's so good is because you got it on the page, and that's more than a lot of people can say. And it's the best thing you have written to this point because you've never done it before. It does make it very hard to be critical of yourself, though. It's hard to be honest with yourself or look at it objectively and say, is this good? Because you wrote it. This has been my experience. I have a hard time looking at my own writing, especially when I first started writing, and saying, did I do the right thing here? Did I not? And having space away from the project does help. But the fastest way to see what good writing and bad writing looks like is to see someone else's rough project, edit for them for something specific, whatever it is that they're, however you can help, even if it's just checking for punctuation and things like that. It gets you in the habit of it, and it's outside of your own voice, so that when you come back and look at your own project, it refreshes your eyes. Reading for other people, I found, does a similar thing in that you start to pick up on what they did that you liked versus what you didn't like. And it also gives you something to contrast when you're reading good fiction that's published versus rough fiction that's not edited, not anything. It's really rough stuff. It gives you that comparison so that you can start to understand the differences. And the more familiar you become with the differences, the easier it gets to pick up on those in your own writing and in your own projects. So I think this is absolutely true. It's very helpful to read and edit for other people, beta read, whatever the case may be, alpha read. It'll give you confidence in that you know what you're looking for, and you'll start to pick up on patterns. And you'll also start to see how good you really are and what areas you can improve on, because chances are you're not going to have the same weaknesses that they have. So I think this would be very helpful if you've just started writing and you maybe got your first chapter done and you're getting ready to edit. If you read and edit for someone else before you even start on your own project. I know when I first started writing and I was posting chapters after I finished them on Wattpad and doing read for reads with people, it helped me improve so much, and I don't know what I would have done without that experience. So if you have the opportunity to switch for feedback or anything like that in a reading group, I definitely recommend. So that's my video on true or false, the basics, beginner editing advice. I hope this was helpful for you, and if you have additional thoughts or comments, or if you disagree with any of my true or false, I'd love to hear that in the comments. Or if you'd like to make a video and answer these questions yourself, true or false, I'd love to see what you think, and you can tag me in that. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.